people are paying you to send them, what could be overtly promotional content. So it's sort of the holy grail. And if you can do that, you've got a 6 or 7 figure business on your hands easily, even just from 500 to 1,000 users. Welcome back to the S Factor. My name is 𝗖𝗛𝗢𝗨𝗧, and I'm a blogger and digital entrepreneur with 15 years experience building income-producing assets. My success factor is monetization, specifically all the different creative ways I come up with to monetize my content.
Hello, Casey. Welcome to the S Factor. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Tarek.
Thanks for your time. We do appreciate that. This is going to be a very interesting episode. I am more interested about, and I'm sure a lot of the audience will be as well. It's all about making money through digital publications. We've heard of bloggers, we've heard of people who write for different publications online, but we don't actually always know how it is that they find work or how they actually monetize their work, right? So we're going to be talking about that. I know that you've been like a full-time blogger in this space since 2018. And before that, you worked in digital PR, reputation management. So let's start from there. Like, what are some of the things that you were doing before you became a full-time blogger?
Sure. I guess my main job basically before I was pursuing blogging full-time was working for a lobbying and digital consulting firm. And as you mentioned, that kind of involved a mixture of online reputation management, which at the time I thought of more as just sort of a service that we offered that was specific basically to the needs of our clients, building their profiles, their public personas, managing what content was out there about them. But I would later learn that this was essentially SEO, search engine optimization. So basically learning the ins and outs of how to publish content and rank in popular search engines.
Awesome. And let's jump into the blogging space. When did you first start your blog and when did you first start monetizing it?
Sure. So I guess first I have a portfolio of blogs. So there are actually a number of them. I counted right before this just to double check. So there are technically 15 that are active. About 4 to 5 of those are making at least $500 a month. That's sort of the threshold I set. The rest I would view more as an experiment or a long-term trial related to SEO. But there's 4 or 5 main ones. And the oldest blog actually I no longer have, but the first one I started was about 10 years ago. It was in the reality TV niche. And it was basically focused on a lot of sort of the biographies and backgrounds that lots of reality TV stars had, which at the time was fairly novel. People like that weren't covered too well in Wikipedia and stuff like that. So people would search for, so-and-so's background, and there usually wasn't much information. So I was pretty early to do that. And I eventually sold that blog. But that blog was monetized purely through Google AdSense, which is a totally valid way to monetize a blog, and essentially using display ads, which is what that is. That's still how I monetize a lot of my blogs, but it's only one piece of the overall income puzzle now.
Got it. So you mentioned something about selling off a blog, right? So who would buy a blog?
So, there's a number of people who would buy a blog. In this case, it was actually someone who was both a competitor and so they had a blog in a similar niche. and they were looking to expand their traffic. This was still kind of the early days of my blogging, and I didn't have a chance to really scale the site. I was in college at the time, and I just didn't really have time to fully kind of realize the potential. So I actually reached out to them because we were competing in a lot of search results, and I had a fair amount of traffic. But basically, yeah, the type of people who'd actually want to buy a blog are usually somebody who either wants to enter a niche or already has a presence there, or it could be somebody who's purely looking at it from an investment perspective. So blogs usually pay out, let's say on average, about 30 times monthly profit. So, that means that if it's a decently established site in today's market, probably closer to 35 or 36 times monthly profit, meaning that unlike a lot of other assets, you can make back, that your entire investment in a little under 3 years. That's basically the expected, ROI on that.
Excellent, excellent. This is something which obviously I had no idea about. So this is perfect. So looking at your portfolio of blogs, which is your highest performing blog right now?
So I have two that are pretty close that kind of trade positions. Mm-hmm. One of them is a publicly disclosed blog. It's called Blogging Guide, and that's where I just share a lot of my findings from all the different blogs I run and just sort of my digital marketing experiments, SEO, things like that. And the other is in the software niche, but I that one I haven't disclosed the specific site. But both of those sites earn a pretty healthy income. It took about 18 months, I think, for the first one to reach the point where I felt comfortable taking the leap and actually leaving my full-time job. So I should definitely be clear, this is by no means a get-rich-quick scheme. There was a lot of dedicated effort. That was 18 months of part-time effort, but, pretty aggressively pursuing it part-time and starting to outsource some of the work. So I wouldn't expect anything overnight, but generally the timeline is about 12 to 24 months to fully, get a blog scaled and ranking and earning close to its potential.
That's something very important you just mentioned, that obviously this is not a get rich quick scheme, right? Obviously not. So speaking of which, I wanted to understand a little bit more about this and add some value as well to people who might be thinking about jumping into this, right? So as a novice, say I have a particular point of view, there's a particular subject that I know a lot about. Structured knowledge, perhaps I've gathered it from work itself, whatever. How do I convert this knowledge and this interest that I have into a blog, which can hopefully be monetized, as you said, 12 months, 18 months down the road?
So there's basically, I'd say, two main ways that people might pursue this. And usually people end up doing both. But the first method that doesn't really cost anything and is sort of the most frictionless way to start is to use a hosted platform. So that would be something like Medium, Blogger. It could be Substack if you're doing newsletters. Basically, it's some digital publishing platform where they handle all of the website hosting and you're only responsible for publishing content. So you don't have to spend time going through adding, custom images or writing meta descriptions. That's usually sort of the quickest way for you to start publishing content. You can get started in, under an hour with that. The downside to that is that you lack a lot of control over your content not just in terms of the intellectual ownership, but I mean, you lack a lot of the control as to how you monetize it. So depending on which platform you use, if you're using one of these third-party platforms, chances are you're not really able to monetize it fully because you can't run things like display ads usually. Sites like Medium make money by putting content, including mine, behind like a metered paywall. So there's no way that's basically what they're promising their readers is an ad-free experience. So you can't run overt ads. You can do some affiliate marketing, but if you just want to get started, there's platforms like that. Now, if you actually wanted to seriously pursue, building and scaling, your own self-hosted blog, that is a blog that you manage the files and either own the servers or more likely rent them from a third-party service like Bluehost or Kinsta. Basically, yeah, you're probably going to build a WordPress-based site on one of those, few main hosting platforms. Bluehost is generally the go-to for new bloggers. It's only a few dollars a month. And unless you have a lot of traffic, that'll definitely handle your needs. But basically, yeah, you kind of have to go through this whole process, which if you built a static website before, this will be relatively easy. If you have no website, experience, you can still do this. The process is much simpler than it was 10 years ago when I started, and there's just an abundance of resources walking you step by step through. You really don't need to be tech savvy to set something like this up. But if you've never done it, there is a learning curve. And I would expect, a month or two of trial and error, probably just in setting up the site and making sure everything's configured and you know how to edit it. But this is also one of those things you can outsource or get help, on Fiverr or something relatively cheaply anywhere in the world. So I wouldn't let that be the deterrent. But that is the main thing, is that you have to be comfortable investing a few $100s, probably a commitment of $40 to $50 a month to factor in hosting, plugins, different things you might need. But yeah, really it's just if you have this expertise, if you have some specialized area of knowledge where you can add value, there's almost no question that you can monetize your content. The real question is how. So the first step is just to basically launch the site. Second is to basically start, producing as much high value content as possible. And as you stumble through that, you'll likely enter the third phase at some point, which is when you actually figure out how to monetize your traffic. And like I said, for some people, display ads are the best because they don't have to worry about changing links or promoting new products. They just are these programmatic ads that run in the background automatically. You just add like a little, code script to your website in one place and ads automatically run everywhere. It's effortless. You'll never have to think about it again. Whereas if you want to do something like brand sponsored, posts, different deals like that, you will need to, those can be lucrative, but you do need to spend some time interacting and sourcing those deals. So there's a whole spectrum of opportunities there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going into so much detail. I do appreciate that, and so does everyone else. So I am at stage 3. Let's say I have gathered some traction. I got the display ads going. Yes, brand deals are still a little farther along, right, in the process. But in the meantime, as I get to stage 4 and maybe get to stage 5, what other monetization what are the abilities to monetize this thing? So, for example, as you mentioned, that affiliate marketing could be one. There are paid membership communities as well. So I want to know a little bit more about these two things, especially affiliate marketing and membership communities. How do you go about getting affiliate marketing, number one, for people who have never done this before? And how do you build up a paid membership community?
Well, those are two good questions. I'll do the affiliate one first. So basically, for those not familiar, affiliate marketing is basically where you're promoting someone else's product. So this isn't a product you don't personally sell, but basically in exchange for promoting it, you get a cut of the revenues. So usually it's something fixed, like say 20% of the sale. So the reason this is desirable is pretty obvious. You don't need to physically have any of the product, and you can essentially promote anything as long as someone has one of these programs set up. So obviously this is a very popular way for, basically anyone to promote anything. Now, to get into the right affiliate programs, that's why it's good to follow these steps, because some people jump ahead and think they can just kind of spam social media with links to affiliate products, and that's really not how it works. You're going to need to drive traffic generally to your website, to your pages or blog posts, and from there someone will click on your affiliate link. So as an example, I'm an affiliate for Canva, and Canva is one of the leading sort of WYSIWYG graphic design platforms. So I talk about that. I've done tutorials and stuff like that covering Canva. And anytime someone clicks on my link and within X amount of days signs up for a paid membership, I basically get a fixed commission. So yeah, it works out to something like, I think it's like $19 for like an annual subscription on like a $120 sale. Doesn't sound like much at first, but then you start to realize, like I said, that, you're basically only writing the content once, and, it generally builds momentum the more content you add. And so, yeah, at the beginning, you might just have one sale a month, but, potentially, as I do now with some products, you can have hundreds of sales per month, and some programs will even pay you a recurring affiliate revenue stream, meaning if you do something like software where you sign up for an email marketing system, let's say, where the customer pays every month or annually, you can get a regular cut of that. So I have some programs, probably the oldest one going back about 5 years, where I barely even remember the article I wrote, but I do, like, I literally know the days of the month that I I get that paycheck, and that's like when people start to, I think, that is passive income, and that's sort of like the best, combination. So that's why affiliate marketing is very popular, and it's realistic. You're just copying and pasting, inserting a link. Now there's a little more to it in that you need to get accepted into these affiliate programs. But if you build this like a sound site, you have some amount of traffic. Typically, it's not that hard, and you can apply to these big networks. So like one's called Impact Radius, there's Share a Sale, there's ClickBank. So usually you start with big aggregators or networks, and these allow you to simultaneously apply to many affiliate programs at once. So you don't have to submit the same application hundreds of times, let's say. As you get bigger, you will have people reach out to you through your blog, or you can proactively reach out to them. And the bigger your blog is, the more traffic you can demonstrate. You can negotiate affiliate deals, and you can increase your commission even on pretty well-established ones. So there's a lot of room for people to make money with that. As far as the online community aspect goes, you can use the online community essentially as lead generation content, meaning that you spend the time and effort building and scaling and just nurturing this online community. And because, people love online communities, they're very sticky. If you can retain people, they're extraordinarily valuable. So whether it's ads, promotional, you can monetize the community less directly. Or if it's a really high engagement community, like people that have a very specific passion about something. Let's say we're all like bird, watching enthusiasts. You might be able to actually use a platform like Patreon or Memberful, different things like that, and charge a fixed amount per month. And basically you just set up, using their software, what is essentially like a forum, and only people that, have paid or you've added can basically access the community. So like I said, this works well more in the case of really sort of tight-knit topics, and especially if it's anything related to something professional. So if you have a group that talks about flipping websites, or people who specialize in creating NFTs, or are freelance writers, or stock traders, the bigger sort of the impact on your financial life, obviously the more people are willing to pay. The hobby one has its limits, but it definitely can be a big thing. And that's what a lot of these new newsletter platforms like Substack, even though they build themselves as newsletter platforms, they're really building an online community around your content, and they're adding every day more community-like features. So and I use it for that too. I have my own subscription newsletter, and I use it basically as a paywall, so that when someone wants to get access to my content, they subscribe to my newsletter, and they can go into a members only area where they can chat with people and download my courses and different things like that.
Awesome, Casey. I think you have done the most difficult thing in this space, which is to create subscription based, where people are actually paying for the content, correct? Because from what I understand, a little bit of research that I've done, newsletters, actually paying for newsletters or paying for the area which is members only, is possibly the most difficult thing in this particular space, correct?
It is. It probably is maybe only rivaled by selling one-off expensive, maybe like courses. But even then, the recurring revenue, the fact that you have to keep people engaged, it is a hard sale to make. So that's why I wouldn't suggest somebody start with that typically. If you're really passionate, usually what happens is, you start with something like a blog, which is what I did. And then at some point, there's all these different tools that help you, paywall some amount of the content or create a members only area. And the great thing is you don't have to make it all or nothing. You can still keep most of your content free. In fact, that's actually what you should do counterintuitively to grow a paid community. The people that are paying, they really are trying to support you and the community. Typically, it's a cause usually they're passionate about, and a lot of them honestly just value creators, and they know that a lot of creators are underpaid, so they value someone taking the time to set up and run all this. And yeah, that's a pretty good arrangement. So like you said, the other like traditional narrative with newsletters is you think of like email marketing, which essentially you're paying for the privilege to land in people's inboxes. So that's like literally the other extreme. In this case, people are paying you to send them, what could be overtly promotional content. So it's sort of the holy grail. And if you can do that, you've got a 6 or 7 figure business on your hands easily, even just from 500 to 1,000 users. So
that's excellent conversion, because you're talking about 500 to 1,000 really engaged sort of audience, right? And if that results in 6 to 7 figure business, then that's wonderful. I know that in the space of stock tips and other financial products, it works really well. But as you said, that if it is anything related to something which is professional, then people are willing to pay. Hobbies, there's obviously a ceiling for that, right? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the one other thing though is, it always surprises me, but there are a number of sort of political, social, sort of special interest news publications that can basically charge as much as they want, and people are going to pay for it, especially if it's maybe related to something they care about, like environmentalism or, just some specific topic they feel is otherwise not being represented, in their digital media consumption. So it is possible. And there are like a never end, like it'd be very hard to say where the line is, in terms of like what you couldn't monetize. I always see a new newsletter pop up on Substack, and I'm skeptical that this will be something people will pay for. And there are some really obscure ones. And like I said, if you can make a full-time living really with under the 500, people, depending on how much you charge, I mean, that's not actually that difficult. My newsletter has a few hundred paid subscribers at any given time, and relatively low churn rate. And, that it's definitely a good model. So, if you can build something like that's like kind of, like you said, one of the harder things to do in digital marketing, but it's also the easiest time because you have people so engaged and for the first time basically valuing the work that creators put in and are actually willing to pay for a lot of this. So it's a good time to join the passion economy, basically.
Awesome. Perfect. I want to end it with one last question, and I've been curious about this, and we're going to go back a little bit to what you said earlier. We all know Medium is a free platform, but can you actually make money by writing on Medium?
Yeah. So the reason I started a lot of my blogging on Medium is because it basically is what I call a pre-monetized platform. So basically, I mean that Medium has a partner program, sort of like, you could think of it like YouTube's, where basically once you hit a certain threshold, and it's much lower than YouTube's 1,000 subscriber threshold, it's basically immediately. Depending on a combination of referrals and traffic and the amount of people viewing your content, you immediately can start making money from articles. So they pay basically some amount that's proportionate to the number of, views that you generate, you specifically, per month out of the total monthly revenue pool. And yeah, I think that's why I like to suggest people to start with something like that. It's not going to make you rich, and it's probably not the best long-term solution to becoming a full-time blogger, but it doesn't cost anything. It's very simple. It takes all the technical headaches away, and it really gives you a chance just to see if you like writing about something. Because, I mean, there's no point in setting up all these, sites and services and only to figure out that maybe aren't as passionate about something as you thought, or you want to jump around to different topics. Medium allows you to do that. I write about a bunch of different unrelated things on there, whereas in my websites, they're very niche down. I'm focused on one topic per site, and I really don't go much outside that. So on Medium, I typically make around $1,000 a month. And that's mostly from articles I wrote 3 or 4 years ago. So, I mean, I write like one new article a month at this point. So now I've been doing this for a while. So again, it would be misleading. You're not going to generate that amount quickly. But as you add build up this back catalog of articles, you can definitely make money. I think that, the Medium used to release more earnings data. They stopped doing that. But just from all the discussions and people I know on there, there's probably about 1,000 people that are making more than $1,000 a month. That's about the sort of kind of like the best estimate I have. And having done some consulting for Medium, that's kind of the closest estimate I could give.
Perfect. And I think it's also important. I think the takeaway is that to become like a 6-figure blogger, such as, let's say, yourself, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years to get there. But the thing is that I think consistency is very important, because if you're not consistently putting out content, you're not going to create that back catalog, as you said. And the thing is that going forward, you're not going to create that audience for yourself either.
Right. And, it really maybe doesn't sound as good, but the truth is it is the most dedicated writers, that end up winning. It's not necessarily the best writers. I don't consider myself like a fantastic writer. I mean, I've done some like writing contests and stuff for fun, but I'm not, like a creative genius, writing all this stuff. I'm mostly writing concise, actionable, very direct sort of tutorials and different types of how-to type information that people find useful. And, really anyone can do that. And you can monetize across different languages. So even if you're not that comfortable with English as your, first language, there are other platforms that allow you to do this as well. So I think it's a great opportunity. Like I said, at a minimum, you're building your personal brand. There's no question about that. And, it definitely is easier, let's say, than creating, editing, and, producing YouTube videos. The amount of time that goes into video production, which, obviously I'm on your show right now. I enjoy this format. I love watching channels like yours. But there's a reason that I like, blogging, and that's that I can outsource large amounts of it. And there's a chance to step back from it all once you've reached a certain level. So I know you can do that with YouTube to some extent, but it's a little easier with the written content. So that's my 2 cents for your viewers.
Awesome. Makes sense. And I totally agree with you about YouTube. So, Casey, if people wanted to find you, where would they look?
Sure. So my main site, or probably the easiest way to get in contact with me, is bloggingguide.com. Mm-hmm. Or you can go to my website, 𝗖𝗛𝗢𝗪𝗔𝗡𝗟.com. Mm-hmm. But Blogging Guide's the main site. And from there, you can find out all the information or read any articles. So
awesome. And it will be in the description below. So definitely check it out. Casey, thank you again so much for your time and all the valuable information. And I wish you all the best for 2023.
Well, thanks, Tarek. I really appreciate you having me on.